What is going on, everybody? It's your oh so beloved and glorious Mace Valor. Spoilers. I'm telling you. All right, so here. Wow, Mike. I don't even know how to contain my excitement, but I'm letting you know. I don't even know what the hell I'm going to do with this podcast, but spoilers. That's all that matters. Okay? Here's the deal. Last Friday, I got back from California, and oh boy, I'll talk about that later on. I'll talk about the gig economy stuff, but I just want to get this out of the way right now. All right, no, hold on. Wow, I'm just so excited. All right, so right now, I'll talk about what I've been up to recently. I'll try to condense that relatively short, like I usually do. We'll talk what my California trip, we'll talk gig economy, we'll talk all of it, okay? We will. Right now. That's what we're going to start off with, and then we'll get into Game of Thrones and Endgame. Wow. All right, so I went out to California recently, and I had to handle some court stuff with some stuff that is in June is going to be erased, thankfully. So that's a lot of debt just taken off of my life. Just a lot of money that is supposedly owed, but it really isn't. And it's having to go to courts and stuff, and the whole back due child support stuff that, it wasn't supposed to be due because it was money that was paid. But, these companies, right? That's how they act. These departments of government, they act as companies. Like, so that particular office that had said I owed them, even though I didn't, they act as a debt collection agency, is how they operate. And, I had to do the things I had to do with my oldest son's mother. And, things were pretty amicable between the two of us. And, we did what we had to do so that stuff's filed. There is a court date, but that's more so for the Department of Child Support Services than anything between me and her, because we've already signed everything. So it's just kind of like finalizing all of it. So everything's good to go. And I'm like so happy that is all like over with. It's a large chapter of my life that it's just over with now. And, well, it's going to be over with officially, so I'm going to hold my breath on it. But oh, man, it opens up so many avenues for me. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be as busy as possible. Oh, man, there's so much work that I need to do on my end. There's this whole climb about being successful, and you have to go out of your way. You have to get out of your comfort zone. If you want to be successful, you keep doing the same thing, you're going to see very minor results. It's the same perspective I have when it comes to work. I do new things. I do things that are out of my zone, my comfort zone, because I want to be successful. And the best way to do that, is you got to learn. You got to learn. Like for work, for example, is the only kind of jobs that I don't do are the ones that are completely unsafe to begin with. I've had plenty of those where clients will have me do something that really honestly does need two people. But, they don't want to have to pay for two people. So I just don't do those jobs. And then there's the other one where it requires a specialty tool that costs far more than what the job is worth. So, for what I would make from the job. And when I say specialty tools, it's usually something that I'm not ever really going to be using this tool. So to justify one purchase on a job you're going to do one time and then it sits there, even if you would even out on that one job and that tool, then it's like, well, I wasted my time. It's like, yeah, the work that I did paid for the tool, but this isn't a specialty thing this isn't like a thing that I do a lot. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody, so California was fun. I got to spend some time with my oldest son, Mike, but man, I just wish that some of the complications that had happened while we were out there wouldn't have been so. So like Thursday, it's like, great, yeah, we're gonna go Thursday. I'm gonna turn all this paperwork in, and I brought him with me, and man, the queue at Child Support Services was so long. And, we got up early in the morning. We didn't go as soon as they opened, which is probably what we should have done. But I had to get copies and everything of all the documents, and it's like, all right, fine. So I go to FedEx, get all the copies, and yeah, man, it was just rough. And so by the time we actually got there, it was like noon, because it was about 45 minutes away from the hotel. So it just... so much has been going on, and out there. But so the next morning, because we were there, my oldest son, we're sitting there. I should have let him bring his game in. I don't know why, but a little bit of time without it should have been fine for him. But it was boring. It was long. We were there for a few hours, man. And he ended up getting a bloody nose and stuff. He actually got a bloody nose as soon as they called our number. And it's like, oh well, yeah. So that's your number, but yeah, you're gonna need to actually go over to here, and we can put you in queue for that. But you got 50 people ahead of you, and it's like, just to get to my number to this point, it just wasn't gonna. I'm all over the place. It was just gonna take way too long. And I was like, I'll come back tomorrow morning. So that's exactly what I did. I came back Friday morning by myself. Oh my God. It was just so much. But I finally knocked it out. And it was interesting too, because I'm in line that morning at the courthouse, and there's this guy. And we're in line all of us are in line outside waiting to get in, and this dude wants to come preaching the gospel. He's got a Bible in one hand, he's got another one of his friends handing out literature on Jesus and stuff, which I thought was fine. I wasn't like offended by it or anything. It's like, hey man, it's your right. You want to come and preach the gospel to people? Like, hey, you're reinforcing a core tenet of your religion to spread the word of Christ. That's cool for you, man. And not a lot of people are listening to him, and me, I'm just sitting there like, well, I kind of want to see where this is going. So I had paused my music, and I'm like, listening to this guy, because I walk around with my headphones all the time, and I'm listening to this guy, and it's fine. He starts talking about lying. He's like, oh, if you're a liar, you can't enter the house of God. And I'm like, a lot of people lie. And he brings up, it's like everyone lies, even back when you're like a little toddler and stuff. Even when you're a little kid, you lie. Even without not really knowing what it means. Like, we all lie. So you have to repent and all this stuff. And I'm like, uh-oh. He brings up repent. He's talking about entering the house of God. Where is this going? And finally, he starts talking about the 10 Commandments. He's like, God gave us rules to live by. And they're very easy. And there's only 10 of them. I'm going to talk about a couple of them. And of all the 10 Commandments to put out there, man. Of all of them, he's talking about, I don't even know what the 10 Commandments are off the top of my head, but what he was talking about, it's like, if a man lusts after a woman, he has committed adultery in the eyes of the Lord. And I'm like, uh-oh. And he starts talking about porn and shit. He's like, yeah, if you're watching pornography, that's an act of sin. You can be damned for that, because that goes against the word of God. And I'm like, what? Dude, all right, hold on, come on. We're not going to be condemned to hell for watching people do the nasty, okay? And then he's like, God commands that a man layeth with a woman, and it's right there in the Bible. If it's any other way, you're condemned to hell. You have men and women and women. It's a treasonous act against the word of God. And you shall be condemned for all eternity. And it's like, bam, that's where he broke everyone. And there were actually a couple chicks that got really pissed off and started saying some shit. And, it's like a clear picture whenever you have someone that's up against you. We see this on YouTube all the time when people are like trying to engage in a conversation, but the other side doesn't want to hear them. But this lady was, her arguments was basically like, well, if God has, created us in his image, then why did he create us this way if he's so perfect and everything? Horrible, horrible fucking argument to be had. Honestly, you really can't argue with these people. It's perfectly fine. You want to have the religion that you have. And I've always had this sentiment, as long as it does not infringe or encroach upon the freedoms and liberties of others, by all means. And anything other than that, which what this guy was doing, was just clear and present hate. Personally, I don't think that there's any wrong with people that are gay or whatever, because it personally does not affect me. So who gives a shit what the fuck they do? But then when you bring up the whole religion thing, and then where your soul, the entire entity of your being, this whole metaphysical thing, where it's going to be residing for the rest of eternity once you bite the dust, then it gets really personal. So obviously a lot of people get really offended by it, and it's, I guess, really hard for people to kind of turn it off. Honestly, I think it's like, look, let people talk, let them say what they want to say, don't acknowledge it. But this lady got all fucking pissed off and started like going off on this dude. But his buddy that was passing around literature, it was, so on one side it's $100 bill, and and on the other side it's got all this stuff about God. Like I looked at someone else that had, like, leaned over and looked at what it looked like on someone else because I didn't want to take one, and it's like, I don't know, I get really sketched out with a lot of churches and stuff, which is why it's really hard for me to even find a church that I like, because a lot of it just comes back to money. A lot of churches are just greedy, and it kind of goes to like the televangelists, the TV preachers. Like, everything that they do is about money, and and this guy, the thing that got me about him was that his target demographic is from a generation that just is not in tune with modern day. Okay, we're talking people that are 50 years and older. All right, but he's talking to a lot of people that are younger than that. Like in their 30s, early 40s. He's talking to people that have kind of gone away from those old traditional mindsets. And, if you want to use honey, not vinegar. And that's the thing that I've always had a problem with people that are preaching the gospel, is that they want to preach love, but reinforce damnation. It's really hard to get someone on your side if you're like, Jesus loves you, but you're a sinner, so you're going to die and burn in hell unless you commit your entire life to him. And it's like, it's a hypocrisy thing. It's like, do unto others, man. That's why I've always been kind of a New Testament guy, because Christ kind of talks more about the love of God, as opposed to the fiery damnation he shall heap upon the heads of those who rally against him, or whatever. It's all about love. It's all about a personal relationship. And I personally didn't want to say anything. It's like, man, I'm here for one goal and one goal only: to get in there, those doors, turn these papers in, and then I'm gonna fuck off for the rest of the day. And that's exactly what I did. So I drove home. I hung out with my oldest son for a little bit before I ended up leaving. I met up with my mom. There were some copies I did have to have mail off. Had to meet with a third party to make sure that they could sign the severance papers, not severance, the serving papers, because I just took care of everything and mailed everything off. Then hung out for a little bit with my mom. Met up with her before she had some stuff going on. Then I met up with my kid, and then headed off to California. And wow, man, it's like, what a trip. I think it took me quite a while to actually get back. I think it was about a little over 5 hours from the time that I left. But I got home, and everything's been kind of good since then. I recorded the podcast Friday, and I don't know what the hell happened to it. So a little bit of behind the scenes for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm recording this on an iPad, which, if you've been paying attention, you guys would already know that. And I really like it so far, but I've come up to one hiccup. So I recorded on Friday because I had Game of Thrones predictions and shit, which I'm glad that no one can hear, so they can tell me how wrong I was. Mainly, I thought that more people were everyone I thought that was going to live, lived. Some of the people I thought that were going to die, did die. I did think a lot more characters were going to die. So yeah, that's basically the whole Game of Thrones thing from the last stream that I talked about. I did talk about some other stuff with gig economy, but now it's like, because that audio file's fucking lost, I have no idea what it was that I talked about. But I think it more so just had to do with what I said now, is about closing certain financial chapters in your life to open up newer, better ones. Oh man, though, like work is good. Like it's been slow. I just did a job today. And then I actually got to get home, right before 3. I got to watch the little one while his mom goes and hangs out with her brother and her mom. So today it's just the one job, which was $45, and then the lady tipped me like $7 in cash. How much? It's like $7. So that was nice. That was very much appreciated. The rain was crazy today. It's been really windy too out here in nice, good old Las Vegas. It's been nice, for the most part. It hasn't gotten too crazy hot, but the wind, and we've had some thunder and lightning, which I could just out my window at the Grand Old Mesa Park where I like to record these. Oh man, I'm telling you, dude, it's like, I don't know. It's like I take a moment to speak it all out loud, and then I take a moment of reflection, and it's like, wow, this crazy chapter of my life is gone, because the whole reason why I got into the gig economy as heavily as I did was because I couldn't have a regular 9-to-5 job. It was really hard with child support services taking as much as they were taking, because there's the past due amount and then there's the interest, and it cascades on, and then every month they apply a fee, and it's like, what the fuck is this? $43,000? That is insane. And no matter how much you pay each month, that number goes up because of the interest. So, because they don't just charge interest just on the principal. I think it's what they call it, compound. It's interest on the whole amount, and then they tack it up more, and they tack it up more. So, and it's 10%. It's 10%. That is a ridiculous amount. So, I actually might get a tax return this year, which I don't know as of right now. All my taxes are done, and it's coming in. And child support services, they are owed like $1,000, so they'll take $1,000 and from my tax returns. That's all that's owed. And on one hand, I was speaking with someone at Self-Help, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well you can go back and forth and go against that if you want. That's a longer process." It's like, look, I'm going to be in Las Vegas. I don't want to have to drive back out here, waste time, waste money. That's time that I'm not working. So even if I save up money to drive back out here to take care of that, we don't even know how much that number can go down. I'll pay off the whatever $1,000 that they say that I owe after everything else is removed, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then that'll be done. That'll be closed, and then it'll reflect on my credit score, and everything will be hunky dory. So, you just got to take the blows that you can manageably take, and that's what I'm doing. It's like, what's the benefit of all of that? Well, the number could go down, but we don't know how much. It's like, all right, well, what's the benefit of just paying it off? Well, you pay it off, which is paid off through your tax return. They take their portion, you get the rest, and then that's it. And it's like, so I don't have to miss work. I don't have to fucking waste time driving all the way out there. I don't have to waste the energy and the emotional just stress of dealing with stupid legal court shit, which you have to do again, filing more paperwork, this, that, and the other. It's like, no, my time, my energy, my emotional sanity, it's worth so much more than having to deal with all that. Let them take the $1,000. I don't care at this point. So, oh boy, man, it's almost a breath of fresh air. It almost is, because now that has been done, we move on to the next thing. So in June, that is finished. June 12th is that court date. Once they finalize everything, that court date, that's it. No more. Don't have to worry about it. And then we move on to my son coming out for the summer, and then seeing what we can do with that. So basically for the month of May, I've got to be hustling. I have got to be making money with TaskRabbit, with work. But at the same time, on the same note, is I have to be able to write. So I got to dedicate time to living life, all this jazz. But I really got to write, man. And now we're gonna officially go into the whole spoiler territory. I'll start off with talking about my book, so not heavy spoilers, and then we'll kind of go into everything else. Shelter, man. Shelter. It's like, I've been working on it for a long time, and I have quite a road ahead of me. And it's like, there are certain grooves I get into when I write. I gotta find that groove. I gotta get into that mix. I gotta hit it. Like, there have been days where I'll be writing, but I'll spend hours and it's maybe only a page. And then there will be days where I'll be writing all day and it's like a chapter and a half. And it's like, how do I get into that spot? And I always get hemmed up. So what I've kind of done is, when I get writer's block, what I do is as I'm writing, I'll put a huge line across the page, just a big old dash mark, and then I'll press enter. It's like, I'll come back to this later. So as I write, things do change. It's like, as I'm writing and I kind of see where my mind is going, things on my outlets and my blueprints and, things I've already written, I have to go back and then change them, because it kind of evolves as I write. And there have been times where I'll write one paragraph that forces me to go back and alter entire chapters. Not like everything, but then I got to read through the whole thing, find out what's good, bad, and indifferent. So kind of what I'm doing now is I'm trying to get into a better workflow. And that's not easy, man. It's like, it really isn't, is optimizing, what I'm doing while I'm sitting down writing. And I'm trying to like get it out of my head that, if I had this thing, it would help me write. If I had this thing, it would help me write. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set money aside for now, which is another reason why I'm hoping to make more money this month, is because I need a case for this fucking iPad. And there's a certain couple that I've been looking at, but I essentially want this to operate more like a laptop. So there's a case I'm looking at for it that's a keyboard case. So I'll have the keyboard, but then it's got the iPad sits up like a screen, so it's got like a hinge on it, so I can maneuver it to exactly how I want it. There's a couple cases I've been looking at. I haven't really decided yet, which is part of the reason why I haven't pulled the trigger. And since I have this Bluetooth keyboard, I've kind of been using that. It does the trick. It's not perfect, but it operates for what I got going on. But one of the big things is a fucking Apple Pencil, man. Because using my finger on this damn screen to do a lot of the highlighting and a lot of the maneuvering around and stuff, I was like being able to actually, especially the programs that I use for writing. There's a program that I use strictly for the manuscript, and then there's another one that I do utilize for outlining. And outlining, it's like I have a lot of notes written down, and hey, things connect here, they go here, they move over there, and doing all that with a finger fucking sucks. Trying to make sure it's all there and it's presentable. And I'm not gonna get too much into that, but basically, hopefully in the next week or two, I can have some money set aside so I can at least buy one or the other. The Apple Pencil, I don't mind buying used. I found them for like $65, $70. And then the keyboard case, same deal. It's like $100, but I can find them used for about $60, $70. So kind of, waiting my time out on that. It's not super critical right now, but I do know that it will help my workflow. But for the time being, things are fine. So I did a completion of chapter 3 for a rough draft. So chapter 3 is done. Chapter 1, it's done as well, but I do have to go back and move a couple things around. So the big thing with chapter 1, it's the introductory chapter, right, for the whole story. I mean, you have the prologue, which is just a diary entry, but chapter 1 is the introduction to, this story as a whole. And it's more so setting up the scene of where they're at. So it's Scott, and he's in Chicago, and he's talking about arriving in Chicago and kind of like what it's been like living in Chicago and what it currently does to survive and all these things. And it's like, so you're setting up this environment that he is in, because that plays a very critical role. The city of Chicago, essentially, I try to personify it as like being alive but slowly dying. So that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to that. Is initially when I wrote chapter 1, everything was written beautifully, but from the feedback that I had on it, it was out of order, because I focused so much talking about Shaw, because I talked a lot about the main antagonist for the story. I talked a lot about Shaw in chapter 1, and it's like I think I talked about him too much. So there are some revisions that I've done to where I kind of remove Shaw a bit. He's mentioned because, Shaw, the main character works for Shaw. The main character works for the main villain in the beginning of the story. And, so I kind of removed a little bit of Shaw. Didn't talk about him as much. And I kind of focused on more amplifying Chicago. And so the chapter was kind of all over the place. So without even changing entire paragraphs and altering, I just literally shifted and moved a couple things around. So he talks about being in Chicago currently and what it's like, but then he goes into what, his road from arriving in Chicago leading up to currently where he's at. So the flow is a lot better. So the flow in chapter 1 is a lot better. Chapter 2 is a really rough one, which I've gotten a lot more work on it done now. And it's like, it's the reason why I thought you wrote a lot more. Well, I have. In much later chapters, a lot of these things to write get a lot easier, because once everything has kind of been established, that's why I focus so much in like the first 5 chapters of the story, because it's going to kind of lead you up to kind of where everything's going. So, and I don't even know what the layout's going to be, because it's like initially I was like, it's going to be, the prologue is going to be a diary entry, and then at the end of every chapter it's going to be a diary entry. And then it's like, well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do less diary entries. So it's like at the end of every chapter there's diary entry, and it just fucks up the flow. So kind of what I'm going to be doing is sprinkling in the diary entries as they're needed throughout the story. So some chapters will end and there will be a diary entry. So it's like a buffer between one chapter to another. So I think what I'm going to do with the diary entries is, instead of, throwing it out at too much, I'm going to make each diary entry longer, but there's going to be fewer of them. Kind of like with Game of Thrones, where there's fewer episodes in season 8, but each episode's longer, Oh, man. So I'm very hopeful for Shelter, and I do want to kind of have some sort of website or something. I want to have something set up for that, for Shelter, so I can display Shelter properly. But it obviously those things, it costs money, to get a website going. So I'm gonna focus more on the website once I'm done with chapter 5. Once I know that chapters 1 through 5 are like done, like as far as rough draft is concerned, that'll be it. Because oh man, I'm getting way too far into this. Anyway, Shelter. For those of you that were interested. Okay, let's talk main event time. Actually, before I get there, comment down below. This sponsor is brought to you by my YouTube channel. In this podcast, it's brought to you by itself. Comments down below would be much appreciated. Because, if you've watched the other ones, I like to, answer questions and stuff. So, hit me at the bottom on the comment section. What questions do you guys have that you want me to answer in the next episode of the MVP, the Mace Valor podcast? Main event time. So, I think I'll touch on Endgame before I talk about Game of Thrones. So, Endgame was... it's like so many people are like giving this like super big praise, and I'm not going to be the wet blanket and say, well, it sucked. No, I thought it was good. It was a good Marvel movie, and even the worst Marvel movie is at least entertaining. My least favorite Marvel movie was Captain Marvel. I thought that movie was garbage. It was poor writing. Brie Larson, aside from the fact that I just don't like her, the actress, she didn't portray Captain Marvel with like any kind of finesse. But then again, that's kind of I don't really blame her too much, and I even stressed this in the original version of this podcast that I did. Her character was very robotic and all these things, and her performance was very lackluster. But in Captain Marvel, man, the number one thing I think was a problem with that movie is the whole premise of that movie was just Disney pushing the fucking SJW agenda. And obviously by choosing Brie Larson, who's a fucking professional victim, of course she's going to stand out as the perfect poster child to represent that this push that Disney's going. And it failed. And one of the big things about Endgame that I didn't like, and let me just say this, I loved the movie overall. I thought the movie was fantastic. There's more pluses than minuses about it. Not as good as Infinity War. Infinity War is far better. But Endgame, I thought, was still very, very entertaining. I felt like it wrapped up the last 10 years of Marvel like just perfectly. Like 22 movies, man. And I felt like this movie did everything justice, and it was fun. It was a ride, with the whole time travel elements and stuff. But the big takeaway for one of the things that I did not like was Captain Marvel. They amped this girl up, okay? They amped her up so much, it was sickening. And the thing that really kind of irritated me about a lot of it was the fact that they amped her up all for nothing. She's in the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie. The vast, like, she, maybe had 5-10 minutes of screen time. Maybe that's too much of a low ball. It could have been more. But she was hardly in the fucking film. And in all the promotional stuff, they, even at the end of Infinity War, and they were doing interviews and stuff, they were talking about how Captain Marvel is going to be like this creme de la motherfucking creme, and she's going to fucking be like the key to take out Thanos and all these things. That's why she's still around. And it's like, dude, really? All you did was bring back Tony Stark, and then you went with them to go fucking take out Thanos, which was pointless because, they killed Thanos in the beginning of the movie. And then they realized, fuck, all the stones are gone. And then some time goes on, and they're like, oh, fuck, let's do a time heist. Let's I'm not going to get into the whole synopsis of the movie and, break it down, but Captain Marvel fucked off and did her own fucking thing during the 5-year jump or whatever between films, or between, as far as the storyline was concerned. So, but then she comes back at the end, and then there's this scene with all the female superheroes, and the camera pans back, and it's all the female superheroes. And it's like, on one hand, it's like, it looks really cool. But then on the other, it's like, when you really pay attention to these things, there's a reason why they did that. And that's to kind of push the girl power thing. And I think it would have had less of an impact had Captain Marvel not been the centerpiece for that moment. Because it kind of left me a sour taste in my mouth because of seeing the shit show that was the movie Captain Marvel. So, I mean, there's all sorts of cool fan servicey things that weren't done just for the sake of fan service. They were also done just because they were badass things. Like Captain America wielding Thor's fucking hammer. Or the fact that Thor, in between this time jump from Infinity War, at the beginning, the aftermath of the beginning of the movie, from the events of Infinity War, moving on, he gained a lot of weight in these past 5 years. So, and they kept the fact that he was that he weighed a lot, but he was still a badass. Like, he's still wielding his fucking hammer. He's Stormbreaker and stuff. But yeah, it's like Captain America got to wield Mjolnir, which I thought was very fucking awesome. And without going too much into it, but yeah, the big main thing is, the big main takeaway from this is that Captain America's old now. So if you watch the movie, you'll see why. It has to do with the time travel. He decided to stay back in time at the end of the movie, and then he grew old, so now he's like fucking 70-odd years old, 80 years old, something like that. He lived a full life. So now no more Captain America moving forward, or not Steve Rogers at least. And then we had the nice little switcheroo that Tony was able to do with the stones, and I am Iron Man. Snap, and phased Thanos and all of his minions out of existence. If you can hear that, that's a little ASMR action for you. It's been raining today, like I mentioned earlier, so we got that going on for us right now. So hopefully it's not too distracting. Hopefully the sultry sound of my voice will put you at ease. But yeah, moving on to Game of Thrones, I have never been so amped up for an episode of television in my life. There's never been an event like this. And for the last week, I've been replaying that song from episode 2, season 8 of Game of Thrones, Jenny of Oldstones, just living in the moment that these characters, we may not see them again. So I'm finally when I saw the episode, I loved it. I thought it was great. A lot of people want to bitch, moan, and complain, but me, I guess one of the things that they didn't like was the fact that Arya fucking Stark, man. No one. That she was the one using the cat's paw dagger. The dagger that was meant to kill Bran. The dagger she killed Littlefinger with. The dagger that, she used that dagger to kill the Night King. And just the cinematography of this, there's so many things about this episode I love so much. It's probably easily going to be one of my favorite episodes of Game of Thrones. I mean, hell, going back and looking at previous episodes, it's the combat episodes I like the most. And there are some episodes where it's more talky that I really love those episodes, like Tyrion's trial. Love that episode. That scene. I got to go back and watch the full episode to know for sure if the whole episode's worth a damn. But that scene where Peter Dinklage playing Tyrion is doing the trial, and he's like, "I'll get no justice here, so I will let the gods decide my fate. I demand a trial by combat." That's some fucking haunting ass shit right there. Wonderful performance. But yeah, so like Hard Home, wonderful fucking episode. And the director that did Hard Home he also directed Battle of the Bastards, and these were like heavy combat episodes. Another big combat episode, I don't remember who directed it, but it was the fight with the Wildlings for Castle Black. That was fucking a lot of these, like, there's so much that has to go into combat for this television series, like the choreography, getting it just right. There was, I think it was at season 3, when Daenerys takes Yankai, I believe. The choreography of when Jorah, Grey Worm, and Darius go, I think it's his name, Darius, when they go in to fucking secure the city, the choreography of that fighting was really bad because there was no fluidity to it. It felt so like rehearsed and staged and like taking different dance steps. But you get your pluses and minuses. Anyway, so back on to the Long Night. Night King's dead. The real threat being Cersei, and I like it because it works with George R. R. Martin. This whole deconstruction of fantasy tropes and all that. So I'm like totally down for it. The fact that Arya Stark like came out of fucking nowhere, fucking jumped up, ready to stab the fucking Night King, and then he grabs her by the throat in one hand and her arm in the other, and she drops the dagger and picks it up with her other hand and stabs him right in the chest, and then he fucking explodes, and there's just dust, and then all the White Walkers, dust, and then all of the whites just crumble to the ground, and that's it. That's how the battle was over with. And it's like, I'm not gonna break down the episode or anything, but I'm telling you, man, it was, we lost some really good. Ser Jorah Mormont, we lost him. Lyanna Mormont, lost her. She went out like a champ. So did Jorah. Ed from the Night's Watch, we lost. He was the first major death. It's just so many great, wonderful moments in this episode. Things that I didn't even really see coming. I didn't think that we would see Melisandre come back. I was hoping, because it's like, well, she's supposed to be back for the Battle of Dawn, right? Like the Long Night, the battle for Winterfell. You would imagine it, but like, I guess the way that she came back, just like before the battle even takes place, and she comes riding in, and she holds on to the Dothraki blades, and she has them rise their blades up. So Jorah commands them to rise up their blades, and then she holds onto the blade, says a prayer, and then you just cinematography was wonderful. You see all the Dothraki blades just fucking light up. But then there's a lot of horror elements in the episode. So you see the Dothraki fucking screamers, like they ride out against the fucking, into the darkness, up against the damn the undead army, the Night King's army. And, you see Jon and Dany up on this hill overlooking the battlefield. And you see the Dothraki run with their flaming swords. And then ever so slowly, one after another, the flames are extinguished. And then you see, holy shit. And then when you finally do get a good look at the dead, it's for like maybe a second and a half. You'll blink and you'll miss it. But they come riding up, like they come rushing up against the fucking, the Unsullied that are at the front lines. And they just get decimated. Just, like, it was like a wave. It wasn't like just like a line of guys running. We're talking a mound of bodies just pouring over. And holy shit, it's just such a fucking good episode. And, Beric Dondarrion, the reason why he was brought back so many times was finally discovered why, was to save Arya Stark. Because, if it wasn't for him and the Hound survived, thank God. But if it wasn't for Beric and the Hound running after Arya to save her inside the castle, if it wasn't for the two of them, she would have been dead. And they saved her, and Beric lost his life in the process. And it's just fucking haunting, man, that whole event. And it's nice to see that chapter, that storyline of fighting that big bad is now closed, and we can move on to fighting Cersei and claiming the Iron Throne. Let's get back to the politics. Let's get back to what we're fighting for, what we've kind of all like come together for from the very beginning is getting Daenerys on the throne. And we don't know where we're going to go with it, because we also now, not just the audience, but also characters in the show, we know Jon is the one true king. You know, if you were to go off of lines of succession. So, I mean, who knows where we could go with it. But I do want the ending to be very bittersweet. They did talk about having a big oh shit moment in the show. And for me, the third big oh shit moment is definitely going to be Arya. It's going to be hard for them to top that moment of Arya being the one to rush up to kill the Night King. And I usually when I watch an episode, like, I'm usually pretty chill with it. I'm like, I don't get too crazy, too loud, and that's usually because, you know, I'm watching at the house, and I, you know, got neighbors and shit. I'm not trying to be too much of a ruckus. Hell, even me, I'm not one that, I don't really like it when a lot of people are talking during a movie or TV or whatever. Like, a little comment here and there is fine. But I was pumped. Like, when that shot of the Night King reaching out slow motion to get the knife or the sword that's on his back, because he's going to kill Bran. He's right there in front of Bran. Oh, and we lost Theon. Yeah, that sucked. But hey, Theon went out like a champ too, defending Bran. So Theon, his character arc is complete. He's redeemed himself for all the shit that he did, man. So that's that shot though of Arya just jumping through the darkness with that dagger, and there goes some thunder and lightning. Jesus. Man, it's just seeing that. I was like, I audibly went out like, oh my god, yes! Like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god! And then seeing her, like, in that moment, and holding her by the neck, and then she drops the blade. I'm like, that's it right there. That's it, because that's what she did when she fought with Brienne. She dropped the blade and then brought it to her throat. And it's when they did the little sparring thing, and it's like, so seeing that pay off, like, so much has paid off in this episode, and it just so fucking good. And to all the people that were saying, like, all the YouTubers out there that were like, because there was a lot of them, like the dead will rise in the crypts, which is true. Obviously, it happened in the episode, but not for once did I ever jump on board thinking, like, oh, the dead are going to fight for the Starks. Like, these old kings of winter are going to come forth and defend. Like, they will rise, but they'll defend Winterfell. Fuck no, are you kidding me? They're undead. They're dead. They come back, they fight for the Night King. And that's exactly what happened in the crypts. But no major deaths in the crypts, which, I mean, I am excited to see the next episode, because there's a lot of characters I thought that were going to die this episode. A lot of stronger leading characters I thought were going to die. And now that they're alive, it's like, so what does, what direction are these guys going to take? Like what importance are we going to see from them? Going to be very, very entertaining. So, anyway, I've been rambling quite a bit about this, so we got our stuff out the way. It's going to be a shorter podcast, because I'm going to close it in just a moment. But, hey, man, thank you guys so much for watching and everything, and then I'm starting the truck up. If you guys, have any questions, comments, concerns for me, always hit me up in the comment section down below. And oh god, it's raining so heavy now. And you know what sucks about it being like, it's times like this where you need to take care of your fucking vehicle, because my windshield wiper blades are like shot to shit. Like, they're fucked, like, beyond belief. And that's my bad for not, keeping up on that shit. So that's a headache and an issue I have to deal with. So driving home, thankfully it's right around the corner, but I'm gonna have to go extra slow, because yeah, it's hardly making a dent with all the rain, but I'm still able to at least see out of it. But take care of your vehicle. Get if you need new wiper blades, go out and fucking get them, because when it rains like this, where it kind of came out of nowhere, because it was nice and sunny earlier, and now it's just been, for like the last few hours, it's been overcast as fuck. So anyway, I'm your so glorious and beloved Mace Valor. Yeah, we'll do this again soon. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening to the Mace Valor podcast, the MVP. This is season 1, episode 3, which I probably should have said in the beginning. Or is it episode 3? Should be episode 3. This is episode 3, right? Anyway, whatever. As always, I'm your so glorious Mace Valor. I am your so beloved and glorious Mace Valor. Signing off.